Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. David Kelly here, race director of the Great World Race. Today we have a gentleman with us who got into financial service in high school after the passing of his father. He achieved his financial planning exams as a sophomore in college. In 2012, he set up the Good Life Company, which is a turnkey solution for financial businesses and also advising on well-being. On top of this, he has 5 children and travels the world. Conor Delaney, you're extremely welcome to the Great World Race. How are you?
Doing well, David. Thank you for having me on, man. Appreciate it.
No, absolutely brilliant, Conor. Absolutely brilliant. And Conor, listen, it's a pleasure to have you on. I know you're actually down in a celebration there. You're getting ready for a little bit of warm weather training there. I understand it's a 113 degrees field factor at the moment.
It's hot. I'm doing a lot of the running inside right now, and even at mile 3 or 4, inside in the air conditioning, because it's so humid, the shorts are, it's very wet and warm right now. But that's good. I'm trying to take in as much of that heat as possible and put it in a bottle for Antarctica.
So just for anyone that is obviously tuning in there and that is going to be following the Great World Race, it's probably going to be a week off for Conor on the travel because he's doing that much travel at the moment that the travel for the Great World Race will be relatively easy for him.
That's so funny you said that. I just said that to my wife the other day. I said, we just have to look far enough out with all the craziness of work and the kids and stuff. We just got to get to November. And she said, aren't you running 100 and something miles in 7 days during that time? Yes. And that's where I'm going to find peace, sleeping like a rock on that plane.
Absolutely, Conor. It'll be easy. So, Conor, obviously you have a notable story and a notable background. So if we go back to, say, your early years, high school and your younger years, I know you say, like, we talked at the past, your dad kind of got you into financial service. But if we could kind of go back then as well, where did you grow up? What type of sports were you into, as a teenager? And we can go from there, how you got into the financial services industry.
Sure. Yeah. So, I would say growing up, I was sort of mediocre athlete, played basketball, wound up playing ice hockey in college. But the catalyst for really the sort of changing point in my life was losing my father. My dad was a school teacher, fifth grade teacher, one of the best people I've ever met, one of the best men, best fathers I ever met. I always said if I could be like him as a father, I would be successful because he was a great dad. But really losing him at such a young age, and then some of the immediate health challenges afterwards with my mom, got me on this track of health and wellness and wanting to just make sure that we had this sort of holistically good life. And really, that's where the financial services element came into, because I wanted to learn enough about how to make great decisions financially. And then, the nutrition and the health and stuff followed that. And the motivating factor for me was both not having the same sort of issues for my children that I kind of had to deal with in terms of parents that weren't healthy and some of the challenges we had. But it was also meeting my wife, who I've had the pleasure of running marathons all over the world with her and doing the big six around the world and whatnot. So God's got a funny way of putting together a track that has turned into the life that we get to enjoy today.
We did actually try and talk Liz into joining you on the Great World Race as well, but it tends to, 5 kids tends to kind of negate that. It tends to be a difficult task.
We did try. We went pretty hard. We were both trying to get her to commit to it, but we got off the phone and she said to me, Conor, I've given you 5 children, a couple of them over 10 pounds. Can I hear about the race instead of doing it with you? So she'll join us one day.
It's a very, very fair argument on Liz's part. So, Conor, did your dad pass away? I know, obviously, the Good Life Company was set up in 2012, and we'll go on to that a little bit later. And I know that focused both on, obviously, turnkey solutions and helping financial advisors and smaller financial business while also focusing on your well-being. But, historically, was your dad, healthy? Was it sudden on his passing? Like, did it kind of come out of the blue? Because, obviously, that spurs you on both tracks, both to be financially, I suppose, secure. It does make your life a lot easier, but just to make sure that doesn't come at the cost of health, which in a lot of cases, people, they might do well financially, but they're working maybe 100-hour weeks. There's no exercise, bad diets, maybe, and poor personal relationships as well.
Yeah, he started training for the 7 marathons in 7 day thing and just dropped down. No, just kidding. He didn't. My dad, he was just unhealthy. He didn't have a lot of good nutritional like infrastructure built in terms of like what he was eating and what he was drinking and whatnot. And he wound up getting sick with something called Legionnaire's disease, which was basically breathing in bad air in the classroom that he was a teacher in. And it presented itself like a cold. The day of my high school graduation, he was fine. And the next day I found him in a coma, and he wound up passing a few days later on Father's Day. And so a week to the day that I was graduating college, I was giving my father's eulogy, and so had he had the cardiovascular strength that I've been able to develop just in the years of running, and the understanding of the knowledge and the inflammation of the body that poor health decisions will cause and things like that, he probably would have had a better chance. But I know he gave it everything he could. It just, kind of wasn't in the cards at a relatively young age. So, again, that to me said, we don't have any control in terms of when our time is going to be called, but I want to always make sure that I got the best foot forward in terms of health and nutrition and stuff like that.
So you obviously brought that on. You brought obviously the financial, and you also brought on the health to college. In college, what sports did you play? Was it athletics? What other sports?
Yeah. So I went to college and played ice hockey for 4 years. I was very fortunate. All my roommates were ice hockey players. I actually went with the intention of playing basketball, but my roommate basketball had a sort of a hard stop for me after losing my dad, because I didn't really feel like playing the game that my dad always was there to watch me play. And so my roommates were all ice hockey players, and they said, you should try out for the team. And so we tried from the first day of school until tryouts, and they really taught me everything I knew about the game. Tried out for the team, made the team, and wound up playing 4 years of ice hockey. So along that journey, though, I met Liz, who was a soccer player, and her thing was that, soccer players, I'm sure you know a lot of them, they just run and run and run and run. And hockey is a sprint sport, so you get 90 seconds of stopping or starting and then stopping and then starting and stopping. And I knew if I wanted to keep up with Liz, I was going to have to at some point switch from sprinting to running long distances, just so I could spend more time with her. And so that was a big motivator to get my my time running started.
No, fantastic. And you're actually probably the one of the first people that I've actually met that played ice hockey that still has actually all body parts and teeth and everything intact. So you're extremely lucky that it was a bit of a change around, but fair congratulations on that. But it's so was it just after college then? When did you, how many years in between before you set up the Good Life company?
Yeah, so got all my securities licenses in between my freshman and sophomore year. My mom had gotten sick, and so I knew that there was going to be more financial burden that I was going to have to sort of help her navigate through. And so getting my securities licenses in order to become an advisor just gave me an opportunity to sort of control my destiny and my income as a teenager. And so went to school at night, got my degree in accounting and business management, but ran the business during the day. And my whole thing was working with school teachers, small business owners, and really service-minded people, because they reminded me of my dad. And I knew that if I could teach them the stuff that nobody taught my dad, my dad didn't have $1 million, so nobody really cared to teach him about investments and things like that. And so if I could do that and relate to teachers at a different level, I could build a really cool practice, a niche business. And so we did that. And then in 2012, is when we set out to start serving other advisors around the country and setting up a couple hundred offices here in the United States. The interesting thing that we've really come into lately, David, is this statistic that 71% of advisors in America are divorced. 73% of advisors have diabetes, and 77% of advisors don't have a great relationship with their kids. And so what I've tried to do is to build this company as sort of a beacon of light out there for people to hopefully see and want to sort of follow, so that they can have a better next 20 years than the last 20 years. And so if you think 3 out of every 4 advisors are going through some sort of challenge, much of it deriving from poor health or poor prioritization of their health, we can really be a beacon of light. That's one of the reasons I'm doing this, because you can't just talk about it. You have to walk it out and live it out. And the good fortune of having a great marriage to Liz and great relationships with the 5 kids. That's all sort of what happens behind the closed doors, and the goodness manifests in the job that we do every day. But the nutrition is something we can really lead, and the fitness is stuff we can really lead out front with. And hopefully that's something that we'll be able to demonstrate here when we take on the race.
So just to focus on the kind of lifestyle advice you give, Conor. So some guy, say a team comes in, they set up a financial advisory business. Just say the financial side is, they're doing pretty well. You have them on that side of things, but more on the actual, the kind of wellness side of things. Like what advice do you have someone to go in? Is it just they take, I don't know, they take maybe a day and a half off a week, or there's certain times for family, like the nutrition? Like, how do you kind of start that? Because like I do know there's obviously a lot of people involved in financial services, and obviously it's some, they could be working like 16-hour days, and like if you're working 16-hour days, you're pretty much doing nothing else. Like your diet is going to go badly. Like, there's people, and obviously young people as well, on all, I suppose, the big firms that they go into. It's not like you're going into like a 9 to 5 or 8 to 6 job. And I suppose once you get into the habit of that, and then potentially making large sums of money, it's very hard to kind of pare that back to change that same mentality. And I understand that there's a large sacrifice at that, and the sacrifice is probably worth a lot more. The sacrifice is way larger than the money you make. But how do you get to kind of change that mentality into somebody that's, they're doing pretty well, to kind of come to you? Like what is
Yeah, I think
steps in that?
it starts with helping them to really define what success is. I go back to my father's funeral, and I closed his eulogy. I was only 17. I didn't really know a lot, but I closed his eulogy with a quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson, and it talks about the definition of success. To leave the world a better place than it was when you got there, to put the smile on the face of the child, to earn the respect of honest critics. And so, like, for me, if you can redefine success and take it away from how much money you have in the bank account, or how big your house is, or the kind of car you drive, and you tether it towards the depth of relationship that you can have with your children and with your spouse, and the way that you can invest in yourself differently and take care of your health, that I think is the start of it. And I think what happens is the lie of the enemy is that success is tethered to all this grandiose stuff, like the BMW and the circular driveway and all this stuff. And it doesn't mean that you can't have it. It just means, is that what you're ultimately pursuing? And what we see a lot is guys that will have all of that stuff, and it came at the cost of date nights with their spouse or bedtime with their kids. And so if we can help them to really reshape how they define success, then we can start that sort of rehabilitation process to say, how are we going to realign your priorities? Really, it starts at the home. It starts with their relationship with their spouse and their children. And if those two things are going well, then we can work on the business functions and help them to create cool business outcomes. But the other component of that is, like, you're expecting a high performance out of this body all the time. If you're going to be putting in those 12-hour days, those 14-hour days, you got to give your temple some love too. And so, getting them into some sort of program. It's funny, we didn't really have a lot of stuff early on in terms of a program laid out for how to coach people through their fitness and their health. But it started on the back of napkins. I remember I had an advisor one time come into the office at a different firm, and my admin called me and said, "You got somebody showing up for a meeting?" I said, "I don't have a meeting on the calendar." She goes, "You're going to want to take this." So I take a meeting with the guy, and the guy's got the fancy car, a ton of money, and he sits in my office and he starts crying, and he said, "I got a 9-year-old son, and I'm not going to see his high school graduation." He was 350, 400 pounds. He said, "You got to help me." He just read an article about me running the Boston Marathon, and so I said, "All right, man, let's do it." Big smile on my face. I'm like, I can help you, man. I can get you going, And so I'd meet him down at the trail. And we just started with a walk, and a walk became a jog, and a jog became a run. And that's the thing that I think, if people can just have something to tether to that will motivate them on days when they're not motivated, and will give them something to shoot for in the future. I say to Liz all the time, if the short term looks overwhelming, go long. Go 90 days out of creating a habit of just going for a walk or a run or a jog, or jumping onto a Peloton, and gosh, just listen to the Peloton the first time. Don't even do anything. If you start the behavior, then the output of that 45, 75, 95 days down the road, it's transformative. And that's really been what the repeatable experience that we've seen with trying to help advisors, live their best life.
Yeah, super interesting. And Conor, in your own case, obviously you travel a huge amount as well. And I just know from a traveling point of view, it's very chaotic trying to get exercise and stuff in. You're moving out of airports, you're meeting people, calls and stuff like that. What is your own routine like generally? Because obviously I'm presuming you're in celebration, it's pretty standardized. And I know my good friend Dermot McDermot is kind of giving you some coaching there as well. As he describes, he just told me, Conor's an animal. He goes, he said he's everywhere and all that, So just and he says that's in the most positive way possible. Like how's your own schedule when you're traveling around? Like, is it all mornings you get up, or like is it kind of ad hoc? Things
no, I mean, it's wherever the gap is. I mean, the other day I was flying back from Texas, and I landed, and I was stacked all day. And then I was landed in Celebration here. It was 11 o'clock at night, and our guy Dermot had a 10.5 mile run on the calendar. I'm like, oh man, we got to knock it down. And so that's what we did, and that's what's so cool about this is that when you put a goal out there on the horizon and you really put a plan together to achieve that goal, and you have the resources of somebody like Dermot that's just so accessible with a text message or a phone call, like that's your accountability partner. I mean, he's the nicest guy in the world, but I don't want to let him down. And so, you're checking these boxes every day, like, man, I'm going to get this done. Yeah, I'm going to do it for me, but I also want to make sure that the person that thinks that I'm worthy of the 25 minutes it takes him to write out that program, I want to make sure that I'm doing good by him too. So, I mean, case in point today, I think I have a 28-kilometer run tonight, and it's 5:30. I probably still have another 2 hours of work to do. So we'll try to knock it down at whenever we can. Sometimes it's in the middle of the day. There's a little gap, and so I'll try to do something then. Other times I like to do it in the morning just to get it out of the way. But it's a blessing, man. And I'm sure you've heard this from other people. I think one of the key things that we can never forget is just how lucky we are that we get to move like this. I mean, you see it with training athletes that have had hardships and have gotten hurt and stuff. I mean, I just turned 40 last week, and to be able to move and run, and I don't care if I come in dead last. The reality is it's a blessing that we have this opportunity to put one foot in front of the other and knock down cool runs, whether it's a 5K, a marathon, or 7 of these things in 7 days.
And Conor, just on the note as well on health, like my understanding is you had 1 or 2 health issues yourself in the past stuff as well. Like, obviously you're the picture of health now. Do you want to maybe just give us a little bit of insight on that and how you kind of came out of it?
Hang on, what was the last part?
Sorry, I said you had 1 or 2 health issues yourself along the way as well.
Yeah.
It wasn't just all smooth sailing, just for everyone to kind of get a bit of an insight out there.
Yeah, I mean, a couple things. One, I was the fattest kid in my school growing up. And so, again, poor health, poor nutrition. My parents just didn't know, So every night it was rigatoni pasta and some processed sauce, And it wasn't that they were trying to poison me, but my body an hour later was hungry again. And it was hungry because it wasn't getting the nutrients. It didn't need the calories. It needed the nutrients, And so had to overcome that in high school. And then, a couple of years ago, actually, I had just gotten done running the Boston Marathon, and I was very, very tired, and I had some cut on my chest that wasn't healing. And so my wife was like, "Oh, we got to get that checked out." No, it's fine. It was like a little lump starting to protrude from my chest. We got to get it checked out. I didn't have time to get it checked out, but unfortunately, it was cancer. I wound up having surgery on my chest, my kidneys, to kind of get rid of it. But what was so amazing was the journey that we took to learn about what the stress of working, or the stress of not being as active as I once was. I guess I just done Boston, so I was through that season. But it's amazing what your body is trying to tell you, and the signals it's trying to tell you if you listen to it. And then what's even cooler is when you can understand that in many, many cases, the stuff that we're putting in our body can both promote the positive health as well as heal the stuff that's not, the areas that you need to get healing in. So we went down this journey we went vegan for almost a year and a half, kept on running. I got diagnosed in June, had surgeries in August, and then ran the New York City Marathon in October and Tokyo in January. But it was because I started to recognize that we could fuel. I tell my kids there's a difference. There's eating and treating. And when we're treating, that unfortunately has become the American diet. I'm hungry, so I'm going to eat a piece of pizza. That's not going to do anything for you. If we're going to expect a lot out of our bodies, we need to fuel it. And we fuel it by reducing inflammation and getting the right nutrients into our body. And so from that cool experience, I've been healed for 9 years now. And we actually created a cool restaurant concept and have launched a couple of restaurants, again, with the idea that, like, if you walk into one of our restaurants, our stores are Exton, Pennsylvania, and Red Bank, New Jersey. You walk into a Good Life restaurant there, you're going to see that our people understand the idea that food is a place that they can use to get healthier And it's like a little apothecary. Come to us with your diagnosis of what you're feeling, and we can help you put together something that's going to hopefully make you start to feel better, which is a pretty cool thing.
That's very cool. And just on that note, Connor, as well, I obviously, it's all of it. There's a lot of giving back here as well. You're involved in a couple of projects in Nicaragua as well. My understanding, kind of missionary and CrossFit project where you're promoting various things down there and helping out. It's kind of very, very unique. Could you just go into a bit of background on that as well? It's super, super interesting.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We have fallen in love with Get Strong Ministries down in Ocotal, Nicaragua, and gone down every year, even through COVID, and have brought my children down there and everything. And when I first met my friend Scott and who runs it, Scott and his wife Christy, I thought they were a little bit crazy. We're going to build a CrossFit gym and teach the poorest people in the world how to work out, and didn't think that had any legs to it at all. But what we realized was that when they're in that session, they're not the poorest people in the world. They're a community, and they're people that are trying to get better, and they're getting the same endorphin kick from a great workout that we would. And so they've built an incredible ministry down there, and it really starts with using fitness as a way to introduce people to the Bible. And we've seen marriages be healed. We've seen kids find a better relationship with Jesus, and have been spending a lot of time down there working within the businesses. Their biggest fear is the government down there, and we've been fortunate enough to just work with them and give them confidence that like their identity isn't that they're the best coffee bean guy in Nicaragua or that they can lift the most weights, but that their identity is that they're a child of God. And so that ministry has been amazing to just be a part of it. I always say I get more out of Ocotal every time I go there than I could ever give to it, because it's just it's a great place to go and to just be with people that are so interested in what Americans will say, and they'll kind of follow you off a cliff, which is a different standard that you need to bring when you go down there, because you want to make sure it's so good. So it's a huge place of love for us and our family.
No, it's great. Super interesting project, and well done doing it as well. It's always good, and it's even better when you're actually super motivated by it as well. And it's even better, as you said, at the start, when you think this is crazy. And it turns out a lot of ideas at the start when you sit back, they are crazy, but they end up without the madness, you don't kind of have all the businesses and all the kind of good happening as well.
That's right.
And at the moment, Connor, so we didn't divulge into it that much, but you're training at the moment. What's your regular week look like at the moment, training wise?
Yeah, so I think it's about 6 days a week. I've been pushing 7 just because I like to keep the streak alive. But right now we're up to somewhere between 6 to 10 miles on the low side and 15 to 20 miles on the high side, and just really staggering that, putting some speed in, things like that. I wouldn't try to talk about the clinical side of running or the biological side, but what's been really cool is like just understanding that correlation with the heart and the heart beating, and how many beats per minute, and how that burns your calories will burn faster when you're running at certain speeds and everything, and just like getting the condition of your heart in a great place to go and take these things down. And really there's probably like a sermon or something there, like the condition of your heart. But the cool thing is you can see the progress. I started training on April 1st, and I hadn't done a marathon since November when I did Marine Corps in DC. And so from April 1st, it's like, a little 5K, and the heartbeat was like 153, and I was not moving fast, to now, getting that 10, 12 miles in at a 7-ish minute pace, per mile pace, and keeping that heart rate at 142, 143. Man, your team and the work that they do to understand how the ticker's ticking, and then to work with you to make sure that you're doing the best that you can to achieve your goal. It's really cool. And again, it's amazing to see how the body reacts to that, coming off of like 6, 8, 10, 12 miles a day. It's funny. I was in California yesterday, Florida today, and having run last night, I came in today, and somebody else that I was traveling with was like, man, that travel, it's coming back stinks. It's jet lag and this and that. And I was like, that's interesting, because I came back the same way you did, ran before I left, ran when I got home, and I'm feeling all right. And that's just a testimony to to what happens when you put your body through a certain conditioning, that it becomes normal to be moving and to be active. And you guys do a great job with just easing us into that, not letting us go right out of the stable hot, but building that and sort of stacking that endurance over time. It's been really fun.
Yeah, no, it's great. I appreciate the sentiment there. Dermot is obviously very good at building up, and it's one interesting point. Generally, when people sign up for the 777, they always think, all right, I'm running 25, 30 mile a week. Next week, I'm going to run 70, 80 mile a week. And we're always just there, relax, slow, build up slow. And one point as well is we always say there, the last 2 or 3 weeks, even if you don't think you've done enough, you've done enough. Do not go into the event overcooked, because people get excited and unfortunately they get injured and stuff like that. So definitely add.
Yeah.
And as you said there, the build up happens pretty quick. 4 or 5 weeks later, that 20, 25 miles, you're running double the miles, you're running a lot faster, you're doing a lot more quality. So, the extra kind of couple of weeks of calm at the start they make a huge difference from an injury prevention point of view. And also, you're getting fitter, so you feel kind of gradually better going into it as well, instead of just running out the door 60 mile a week. I want to run as fast as I can for as long as I can. And then every day what I want to do is come home and sleep after a run.
Yeah, and everybody's going to run differently too, and sort of train into it differently, and that's what's so cool. I mean, you're thousands of miles away. You're creating this cool network of people that are running together all over the world, but understanding how each one is different and then building that program for them, it's a huge benefit. And we'll get done with that week and be different people than we were going into it. The same way that there's already a transformation from April until now, and so that'll carry through long after November. It's exciting.
Conor, and just on that note, what's the fueling strategy? Have you any plans for fueling, or generally in marathons? Are you a gels guy, or are you electrolytes guy? Do you eat solid foods, or what is the semi-plan going forward for the event?
I think you had said to sort of pack a little bag for each one of the races in terms of what you're going to wear, just to make it easy. I think we're going to take the same approach with some of the sort of game day nutrition for each day. This way it's all allocated for. We don't need to be looking. Do I have any blocks left from yesterday? I'm typically like everybody's stomach reacts differently, right? For me, I'm like a trash can. Everything I said about being healthy, the night before the race, I'm trying to put as much. I'm like Joey Chestnut, the hot dog guy. I'm eating as many good calories as I can, and then I try to overflow that and get out of the gate pretty good. And then again, the cool thing I learned, I think this is in Amsterdam, I tested it out. If you train into a marathon and you can do all the speed work and the conditioning of the heart leading up to that, what I found is the longer I can keep my heart rate under 150, forget about pace. The longer I can keep it under 150, the less likely I am to hit that wall at 20 miles or 22 miles. So I'll be interested to kind of be tight on the time, seeing what that heart rate per minute is, and then getting that fueling in beforehand. Although you guys will probably have recommendations on what to eat afterwards, because you got to wake up and do it the next day. I can tell you, I've never woken up the day after a marathon and run another marathon, so it'll be interesting.
Yeah, it's funny. The one advice I actually give to people on the event, because people obviously have various plans for nutrition and stuff like that, but your two biggest friends on the event are sleep and calories. As you said, it's the 1 week. Just if you can stomach it, take as many calories in as possible, because it does make a difference towards the end. You just do feel so much better. So it's not like, I'm not trying to promote any sugary food or anything like that, but if you want a second dessert or something like that, that is the week to enjoy.
Yeah.
There's definitely calories in and sleep, because people react different ways, because over the years people have various nutrition plans, and unfortunately when people start traveling, there's so much movement and stuff like that, a lot of that plan does go out the door. So I always say to people, whatever about your recovery, calories in and sleep, and you just cannot.
Calories in, yeah. I can tell, man. When I've been traveling a lot the last couple of weeks, and I haven't been eating as much as I should, and some of those runs you can tell, and there is no worse feeling than looking down, knowing you got 5 or 8 miles left, and you're out of gas. So the good news is I'm getting like a fresh run with my schedule the last couple of weeks. At like, hey, this is how you're gonna feel if you don't eat. So I'm hoping to get all the mess ups out of the way before we get on that plane together.
That's great. And obviously Liz and the 5 children will be following. We'll have a live stream as well. They'll obviously be following you along the way, I assume.
Awesome. Yeah, they're definitely going to be there, and they'll be watching, and they'll be in Miami for the last one. So
Fantastic. Well, and what age are the kids, Connor?
my daughter's 13. My first son is 10. My next daughter is 8. My second son is 4, and our youngest is 1. So.
All right. So Liz will definitely have a busier week than you that week.
Oh yeah, I get to sleep.
Yeah. To relax, a week off for yourself. But listen, Connor, it was an absolute pleasure having you on. I seriously appreciate your time. Obviously, a breath of fresh air and extremely motivating as well, your background. And listen, Connor, we look forward to having you on the event.
Thank you so much, David. It's been great.